Hey y'all, welcome to another What's for Dinner. So if you watched my last one, I made this homemade vodka sauce for the first time, and I was not kidding when I said I am obsessed. I knew that I had to put it back on the menu like ASAP, so I whipped up another batch for this Meatless Monday, but instead of serving it over penne noodles, I decided to try it over this spinach and ricotta ravioli. If you have never tried this brand of pasta, I highly recommend it. It's always so good. I find it in the refrigerated section, usually close to like the deli. It can be a little bit pricey, but it goes on sale pretty often, at least where I live. And then to go along with it, I tried out these smashed Brussels sprouts for the first time, and they turned out so good. So let me show you how I made those. So, of course, I'm just going to open up the package, and I'm just going to trim off all of the ends, and then oftentimes the outer leaves are pretty damaged and kind of gross, so I always try to, look for that and remove those. And then once I got that done, I just threw them into a saucepan, filled it up with water, and added a generous amount of salt. I have that on high heat. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and get my oven preheated to 425 degrees. So once that comes up to a boil, I'm going to let that cook for about 10 minutes or so, just until it's fork tender. And the recipe did say to shock these into like an ice bath. I decided to skip that, but you do you. But I did drain off all the water, and I am taking a paper towel and trying to get off as much moisture as I can, because if you have moisture, it's not going to want to crisp up at all. So as you can see, I've transferred that to a mixing bowl, drizzled it with some olive oil, and my favorite combo lately for like green vegetables is just some plain old garlic, sea salt, and pepper. I think it is the perfect combination. Simple, but so yummy. So I have just tossed those evenly. They're all nicely coated and well seasoned, and I've dumped those out onto a parchment lined cookie sheet. I actually ran out of tinfoil, so I'm just working with what I got. And then I'm taking the bottom of a drinking glass, and I am just pressing down on each one of those, and it was kind of fun, not even gonna lie. But I'm just gonna pop that in the oven for 15 minutes, throw on some fresh Parmesan cheese, and then back in for about 5 minutes. And they turned out so good. I love Brussels sprouts anyways, but this was a fun way to switch it up. Love the texture, love the flavor. I would definitely be doing that again. And as always, I just knew that vodka sauce over the ravioli would be incredible, and it definitely was. So yeah, 10 out of 10. I have been craving Subway lately, so I decided to do a gigantic sub for all this to split. And you can never go wrong with the Walmart Bakery $1 loaves of bread. I know they have a few different varieties of flavors, but I just kept it simple and did Italian, mainly for my kiddos. So for the meats, I have some Black Forest ham, some salami, which is my personal favorite, some pepperoni, and then for the cheese, I'm just doing some sharp white cheddar. And while I'm assembling the sandwich, I am going to go ahead and get my oven preheated to 425 degrees. So now I have just whipped out a small serrated knife, and I found it easiest to start in the middle, work my way down and around, flip it over, and do the same thing. And this type of bread cuts really easily. I never have any trouble. And I like to hollow out the bottom because these loaves tend to be pretty large, and I like the meat and cheese ratio to be just right, so this is a great tip. And I could sit here and say that I'm going to use those leftovers to make like some homemade croutons, but that's unlikely, so here I am feeding the birds. At least I didn't waste it. So now I'm just going to lay down the meats and cheese, and I'm going to bake that anywhere from like 5 to 7-ish minutes. Just keep an eye on it. isn't this such a beautiful sight? I was trying to be all cinematic and wait for that cheese to like drip down onto the tin foil, but it wasn't happening quick enough, and I was starting to worry I was going to burn my eyebrows off. So I had to tell myself to chill and to back away. But after I pulled that out, I let it cool for about a minute, and then I sliced it into little sections. So here I am dressing up my sandwich. I have added a little bit of mayo. Let me know in the comments if you are Team Dukes or Team Hellmann's. We normally buy the Hellmann's, but I wanted to try the Dukes because all my YouTube friends are always talking about it, and I honestly don't know which one I like better, so I'll just have to give it a little more time. But I'm just adding some pickles, lettuce, and this beautiful slice of tomato. We finally got a place in our little town that sells like locally grown fruits and veggies, so that's super exciting. I don't have to drive for like over an hour to get some goods. But I also added some of that submarine oil that I showed. That was my first time using it, and I love the flavor that it added. I'll definitely be using that again. And then to go along with these sandwiches, I just air fried up some Alexia sweet potato tots. I'm the only one in the house that will eat them, sadly. They don't know what they're missing, but these sandwiches are just so fun. It makes me so excited for summer because it makes me think of like picnics, and there's just so many different variations that you could do. Up next, I made a chicken pot pie, but with a twist. So instead of using regular biscuit mix, I used the Cheddar Bay like garlic butter biscuit mix comparable to Red Lobster's biscuits. I have been seeing this idea float all over Facebook, and I knew that I had to try it immediately because we love those biscuits and we love chicken pot pie. I couldn't find an actual recipe that just sounded good to me, so I decided to just use my current favorite chicken pot pie filling, buy the biscuit mix, and just wing it from there. So I started by melting down 4 tablespoons of butter, and I don't normally do this step, but it just sounded good to me at the time. I wanted to use up the rest of those freeze-dried chives, and I like the color that gave the butter, and it gave it just a little bit of extra flavor. I sauteed that for about a minute, and then I added in a 1/3 cup of plain all-purpose flour. I'm sure self-rising would work just the same. If that's what you have, just use whatever you have on hand. I'm going to let that cook for about 2 to 3 minutes, I'd say, and then I'm going to slowly add in 2 cups of chicken broth. I'm going to let that simmer for a bit, let that get nice and thick and smooth, and then I'm going to add in a little bit of heavy whipping cream, I'd say about 1/4 cup, and then just a dash of regular milk to kind of thin it out just a bit. At this point, I can start to season up the sauce, and I do this different each time that I make it. I just go by what I'm feeling that day. So I started off by using my favorite garlic sea salt, some garlic powder, lots of black pepper, and I decided to do some lemon pepper this time, and I really loved what that did for the dish. So once I get those nicely stirred in, I'm going to cut off the heat, and I'm going to add in some cooked and shredded chicken. I actually baked that up earlier in the day with just some olive oil and seasonings, but a lot of times I'll use a rotisserie chicken, so just depends on how much time I have that particular day. I'm also going to add in just a frozen bag of mixed veggies, and that is it. Once I got all of that tossed together, I'm just going to dump that out into a greased casserole dish. I believe this is a 9x9. And I will, of course, take my spatula and just get that into a nice even layer. Then I'm going to get started on the biscuits. So I couldn't find the actual Red Lobster brand in my town, so I just went with the Save-A-Lot brand, which is honestly really good. I've used it before. And I'm just going to follow the directions on the back of the package. So all you have to do is add in some water and some shredded sharp cheddar cheese. I don't know why I started with a whisk because this does get really thick, but I did end up switching to a spoon. But if you wanted to, a lot of people like dollop it on like biscuits, but I like mine to be a thinner consistency, kind of like a pancake batter, because I used to make this chicken pot pie like a few years ago all the time, where you would mix like Bisquick, milk, and an egg, I believe, and it's just like one big like thinner biscuit over top of the casserole, and we really like it done that way. So that's kind of what I was going for. I almost thought that I got it too thin at first, but it worked out just fine. As you can see, the consistency is just what I was looking for. And I'm going to bake this at 400 degrees for 30 minutes. I did the toothpick test and it came out clean, and here's what it looked like when it was done. I did brush that garlic butter on the biscuits as soon as they came out of the oven, as I showed in the first clip. But y'all, this was so delicious. You have to try it if you haven't yet. The only thing is my topping was slightly underdone. It could have probably went for like 3 to 4 minutes, but other than that, even Josh said this is the best pot pie I have made yet. Something else that I have been craving for a hot minute is some Gold Star chili. I absolutely love their three ways. It is hands down one of my all-time favorite meals and one of my biggest comfort foods. This was my first time ever buying or trying the seasoning packet. I usually just follow the Pioneer Woman's like copycat recipe for this. I really love that also. But when I saw this, I was like, that's a really great quicker option, and I wanted to give y'all my thoughts on it. So I just follow the directions on the back of the package for the most part. All you have to do is add water and tomato paste, and of course the packet mix. It did say to not brown your ground beef beforehand, but I decided to ignore that because I just keep 80-20 ground beef on hand, and that sounded like a greasy mess. I did not want all of that grease floating in my chili, and it worked out just fine. I let that cook for about 25 minutes, and this is what it looked like. The consistency was absolutely perfect, and it was so dang delicious. And there was one spice in it that made it not exactly like the restaurants that I couldn't pinpoint though. To go along with it, I roasted up some broccoli, which is another one of my favorite things, and in my opinion, that is the best way to cook up broccoli. But back to the chili, I will most definitely buy those packets again. 2 thumbs up from us. I want to keep a couple on hand in my pantry because I always have everything else, and it was just so quick to throw together, and we all thoroughly enjoyed it. Now on to the last meal idea for this video. So this probably sounds really weird if you've never had this before. I made this one time years ago, and I don't remember it at all, but apparently we really liked it because I pinned it to my favorite recipes board on Pinterest, and I don't take that lightly, so I wanted to try and recreate it. So I have some cube steak, and I just seasoned both sides with some Creole seasoning. You're supposed to coat it in some ranch dressing, but I had some Caesar that I used instead because I just needed to get rid of that bottle. You'll also need some Bisquick, and I did decide to season mine with a little bit of salt, some pepper, garlic powder, and paprika. So here I'm just going to show how I did one of these. So as you can see, I'm just lathering that on both sides, and then I'm going to roll it around in that Bisquick mixture, making sure to, shake off the excess, and then I'm just going to place it into a greased casserole dish. So once I got all of those coated, I'm going to spray it with some of this. I can't believe it's not butter. I know some people get really offended by this stuff, but if you don't like that, you can use any spray butter of your choice, or you could even melt down some real butter and just plop that on top. But I baked that at 375 degrees for about 40 minutes. And I served that with some homemade mashed potatoes and some green beans. And this was somewhat of a fail, kind of. It was tough, which really aggravates me. The flavor is incredible. It tastes like something I've never had before. I can't even really explain it. I really want this recipe to work out. I don't remember this happening the last time I attempted to do it. So, I don't know. It's some parts of it was tender and some parts of it was not. So, if anyone has any tips, please help me out. I've had the most luck with cube steak in the crock pot, and I've also had good luck in the Instant Pot. But in the oven or on the stove, I just have trouble with cube steak. So, I've heard that marinating it in milk can help. So, is that true? I don't know. Help a girl out. But that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it and felt inspired. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.